And what we also want to look at is the cleanliness of our model. You know, when it comes to modeling, you know, we've been messing with it, chemicals on it, fingerprints, sanding, dust, all that kind of stuff has been going onto our model. So I like to clean mine. All right, get some IPA. Right, you can thin the IPA down if you want, just to save a bit, because it doesn't have to be that strong. Right, onto a kitchen paper towel, and what we simply do is we're just going to be sort of like rubbing at this, right, and just sort of carefully cleaning it all up. Right, and what this is going to do, because it's IPA, it cleans off any sort of grease or any grime. Right, we're going over it with a cloth, so we're actually lifting up any hairs, debris, and cleaning all that up. And actually, by just rubbing that, you can kind of see maybe how yellow my kitchen paper towel's gone, because it is picking up dirt and cleaning it all up. And because we use IPA is fantastic because it dries really, really quickly. I could probably blow on that, and you should start to see it dry really, really quickly, so as we don't have to wait for it to dry. If you use like water, it could get into nooks and crannies and take forever to dry, and that's what we like. Now, this is armored vehicles. Admittedly, you know, aircraft, right, doing this is kind of easy because it's normally quite flat surfaces, so you may need to get some cotton wool buds out. I know it's a bit of a tedious task, but getting cotton wool buds out with a bit of IPA on, and we can get into all these nooks and crannies and clean these up as well. It is kind of worth it because, you know, sometimes you can have problems where there's a bit of grease on the model. You spray onto it and the grease will stop the paint from actually sticking, and it can peel up, and all sorts of nasty things could happen. I know admittedly you could get away with it, but better to be on the safe side when it comes to trying to do this at a professional level. I mean, you could do all sorts of really cool work and then it just peels up or something. You don't really want that. So I'm going to go round and clean this. So with our model all nice and clean now, we can actually move along with the spraying. Now when it comes to spraying, I think you should wear a glove. You know, you stop you getting grease and grime back onto the model that we just cleaned. When it comes to primers, do you know what? I've used quite a few primers, and I do like Vallejo's surface primer, but I like it in the 17mm tubs. Little bit of a tip, these polyurethane primers, they are really, really good. When you buy them brand spanking new at the pot, they go down absolutely lovely, really nice smooth surface. Right, but you know, they sell them in these big tubs, and the problem is they do kind of dry up, they do get quite flaky, and you know, you got to shake it up and get it all from the sediment off the bottom. And I just think once you've opened them, they do go all that kind of flakiness, and then you start pouring it in your colour cup, and you do tend to get blockages. I don't know if many of you noticed that, which is why I prefer the 17mm tub, only because you know, it's nice and new. You know, it's quicker to use, and you can throw away the tub and move on, and it doesn't start to dry up and go all flaky and stuff. So that's what I prefer. You just mix it 50-50. I use homebrew thinners. You can use Vallejo thinners, but I use the good old homebrew, and it's just a nice simple task, right? You know, you can nice and simply, we like to start off in spraying with a really light misty coat, a coat in which, you know, you literally almost don't even notice it going down on the model, right? You don't see hardly any coverage, it's just really sort of nice and light. And that misty coat is all about getting a bit of paint down on the model. It's going to dry really quickly, and then you know, all your coats that you do on top of that are going to have something a little bit easier to bond to, right? We don't want to be blasting it down so it's really, really wet. If we do that, you know, it just makes the paint not bond as well, and can have pooling up. So, you know, nice misty coat as I've just shown you there. We can cut to where it'll dry really, really quickly because it's just a misty coat, and then we can put a light coat on, right? A light coat is where we sort of spray it on. You know, we start seeing some coverage, but if we start seeing it come wet, right, which is just start seeing wet there, just move on, right? And that's what we want to be doing all our coats, just that nice light coat. Let that dry, and we can apply a second, maybe a third, and we should have some good coverage from doing all that. And the cool thing is when you've done it, as I've sort of just done one here, which is maybe still a little bit wet, hopefully, as you can see, we really start to see all the sort of details start coming out, and there's something about getting paint down, you know, the photo etch kind of comes out more, you kind of see the detail more, it really just starts to look cool. What you also do potentially also see is any mistakes, any gaps, any problems that you've had with the fit issues. You know, the paint is going to start showing all that stuff, really bring it to the foreground. So, you know, I do recommend before you spray, really give it a good check over, make sure you've not got to do any more filling, sanding, scribing, anything like that, because, you know, you're going to start seeing them now, and if you do, you're probably going to have to step back a bit. You're probably going to have to tackle the gap, tackle the issue, right, maybe sand it down, maybe re-clean it, and then reapply a primer. So, you know, really recommend you check everything before starting your primer. So here it is, all nicely sprayed up and nicely primed. Really sort of go over it and check all your sort of potential mistakes, and maybe do any sort of filling or anything that you might want to do. It looks quite good. I'm going to leave that to dry for a nice bit of time. I'm not going to jump straight in. I might leave it like half an hour or an hour. But your airbrush is probably quite messy after all that sort of spraying. So just a quick one. I do use homebrew airbrush cleaner. You know, you can go check out that video. You could probably use, I would recommend, say, Vallejo airbrush cleaner. Right, we can pour this in here, and actually, just as another little tip, move your models out the way, because as you're sort of cleaning, you could be gurgling up like I do, and it could splatter onto your models, and you've got these nasty little sort of rings end up appear on your spray work. What I like to do is to sort of gurgle, right, which is where we sort of pinch the end of the needle and we let it gurgle out the back there. Don't do it too much that it really starts to splatter, you know, it's just a little bit of pushing it back so it just starts to gurgle. Tip it upside down, colour cup end first, really sort of clean it out. Now these polyurethane primers, right, as I say, they can get quite bitty, you know, and because they stick quite well and everything. So I do like to, right after priming, give my airbrush a little bit more than just that, which nice little cheap product you can use. Good old nail polish remover. It's an acetone, well, this one's acetone free, but you can get the acetone ones, and this just really sort of gets in there and cleans it that little bit better for all your spraying. Because let's face it, we're potentially going to be doing stuff like bleaching, pre-shading, post-shading, and this stuff's like you're getting in close and you need your airbrush working. So I do the same process but using like acetone or acetone free stuff, nail polish kind of stuff, really cheap, right? And I do find that this stuff really sort of cleans it out, right, without having to strip it down and give it a damn good clean. You know, it's just a nice way you can sort of move on. You know, it gives it an half decent good clean, and you can just rub all around it, and as you can see, it just comes up nice and shiny after using that. And then as always, you know, keep pouring and blasting it through until the paint's nice and clean. So yeah, I like to use nail polish as a nice bit of a clean after a primer, right, because they can be you know, a bit more sort of sticky and sort of stick into your airbrush a little bit. So I'm going to leave that to dry and we'll move on with the next bit. So now we come down to actually putting down some paint. Now, a little bit of a tip, not a bad idea. On the underside, we're not really going to see that, and I kind of use that sometimes as a bit of a test bed to do some research on the internet, find out what are the good colour matches. I found some good colour matches, and I thought I'd do a little bit of a test on the model, and hopefully you could say that is, you know, not a bad sort of colour match. I do like it. What I have found is all Tamiya, basically. It is their Tamiya XF 67, which is their NATO green, followed by their XF 68, which is their NATO brown, and their NATO black, which is XF 69. So a nice sort of good colour match there. Now when it comes to doing multiple colour patterns for a camo pattern, because normally we do stuff like pre-shading, I find it makes things a little bit complicated, because, you know, you got to sort of do the pre-shading for the green, and then you sort of mask it up, and really you kind of then need to prime it up, redo some pre-shading, put your brown, NATO brown on, and then again you're masking up, and going through all these processes, and it makes it a little bit sort of complicated unless you did it freehand, which I appreciate. Not everyone's got a steady hand. Me personally, I like to just go flat. Right, let's just make it nice and flat, and then we make up for all the fancy stuff at the end with maybe stuff like bleaching, post shading, and really when it comes to armored vehicles, it's in the weathering stage which makes an armored vehicle. So I'm just nice and simply going to get out our XF67. Make sure you give it a nice good shake. I do like homebrew thinners with this one. You can also use Tamiya thinners if you like. Right, we're going to make it a 50-50 mix. I mean, yes, we do have to pour this in, but around about a 50-50 mix. Right, and then we are going to mix it. Make sure the paintbrush is clean. We mix it, get it all nicely mixed in. Right, and it's basically the same as priming. You just want to get some good coverage with this. Right, so just starting off with main hull just here. We're going to do the usual. Let's get a nice light misty coat going. Right, just like the priming. Right, also make sure you get into all the different angles. Right, we're not after coverage here, it's just nice and misty, just so as our paint's got something to stick to. Although the primer should be really nice, it's just a good habit to get that light misty coat going down. Cut to air, should dry this misty coat really nice and easy, and then we can start actually putting down a light coat, a coat in which we see the coverage, but if we start to see things get wet, just move along, just keep moving along. Don't let it build up, don't let it pool up, don't let it look too wet. Don't forget to come in all these different angles, because there is lots of stuff going on with this. Right, and you could probably call that a nice first light coat. Build that up a couple of coats and that should be all nice and good, and make sure you do all your other bits as well.